I know that you spent, what did you say, 14 years of your life?
Doing it's like it was like giving birth to a child, and now it's off to college. So
right, it takes that long.
And he even gives structure to he does tweak things a little bit with the liturgical year. So he puts like the third Sunday of Advent before the Immaculate Conception, which in the calendar would never happen.
Right.
But he wanted to set the stage with Advent and then do the Immaculate Conception, because at least historically, the world before Christ, and then the birth of Mary, and then the incarnation on Christmas Day. Yeah. So he does tweak the year a little bit, and then in Pentecost he creates this sonata allegro form using the Alleluias, chorales, and chorale Alleluia T. So it's sort of an AB structure.
But you can't. I think you can't just really grab that or in listening to it. But that's where you can understand it by looking at the scores.
Yes, and doing the whole work together, you actually start to see that this is a huge structural musical work. And
so how did you experience that? When did you come to that realization in your own study of Tournemire?
It actually required hearing the aesthetic, and when I actually the chorales, which the middle section of Pentecost, they tend to be a lot more straightforward and not as complicated, and like there's this middle section that sort of stood out for me. And then as I opened up and saw the rest of Pentecost, and somehow the structure became so clear. And
now, when was that? Was that before? Was that when you just began to study?
Sort of in the middle.
In the middle.
Yeah, because no one was there explaining it to me. Because there was actually no one I knew who actually played the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
so you're the only one that I know. That's interesting. I never thought of that. You're the only one who's actually played the whole thing. Is that? Would you say
I
that's
think
true?
there are some other people.
Oh yes, we know the guy from Canada, Duvalier.
Yeah, I think.
Did he record?
Oh yes,
He recorded
There's
the whole
another
thing.
fellow out in Germany that recently has done.
Oh.
But yeah, it is rare.
It is rare.
And you and to to go through this without having a teacher is really kind of a challenge, because you've got to discover it on your own. And
well, I had that experience many times in Langlois music, because I gave many premieres of Langlois music. No one had ever played these pieces, and so I had to decide, knowing his style, knowing him very well, first of all, and knowing his style, then, I could apply what I knew, and I imagine that's what you did too. When you delve into a great deal of music by one composer, you get to have a feel for that style, do you think?
Yeah, the language, and then your fingers start moving in the same way
right.
that the composers moved.
Right.
And and then reading about his life. We actually probably should describe Tournemire.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah. So.
Well, what's interesting to me is he was from this part of France. It's what we call the wine country, Bordeaux, Bordeau. which is southwest of Paris. I've been there. It's a very beautiful city, and so it's interesting. There were three really important organists who were from Bordeaux. There was Joseph Bonnet, who was the Tournemire student who got Tournemire to write Lord Mystique. And then there was Herman Bonal, another organist from Saint Clotilde from Bordeaux, and Tournemire himself. So it's so interesting how these three giants. I love Bonal's music, and a lot of people don't play it, and they don't know it that well. Music. Media Vita, this very extended work, a lot based on Gregorian chant also. So, that's the background of where they were from.
And they have, people from Bordeaux have certain character traits.
Well, I think you could say, Langlais often said, his wife, Langlais' first wife was from the south of France, Escalquins. She was very, very quiet and kind. And he was from Brittany, it was a very different temperament. And the people from this region of Bordeaux had, they were more volatile, is I guess the word that would describe it. They would, sometimes it'd be very happy, and then other times, very unhappy, and it would fluctuate from one to the other mood very, very easily. I don't know that Bonal was that way. I didn't know him personally. Well, we didn't know Tournemire personally either.
Yeah, we get a lot from.
But we've read a lot about him, and we know people who did know him. See, Langlais had studied with him in the early 1930s, and so he reported about how Tournemire was, and others.
Did he have any good stories about Tournemire?
Well, he said how Tournemire was, he would get angry very easily, and he was, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word here, temperamental maybe you would say.
Well, and you got to meet Madame Tournemire, the second one.
the second one. Oh, that was so funny because Tournemire's first wife was Alice Taylor. And his second wife was also Alice. So I always laugh about that because Martial's wife was Suzanne, and then various mistresses were also Suzanne. So he specialized in the Suzannes, and Tournemire specialized in the Alices. And and it's so interesting. The second Alice was a violinist. And she met him in he had wanted so badly to get the job at the Paris Conservatory after he had studied with César Franck, and he wanted very badly to get the job to teach organ, but that didn't happen because it was given to Vidor. And so he was given the accompanying class. And you think, oh, well, what's that? But it's extremely difficult. And we know only one American, Donald Wilkins, who went through that class. Here's what it's like. You look at a huge orchestral score, and you have to sight read that and make a transcription of that for the piano. Boy, I'll tell you, that takes a great. You have to understand the orchestration. You have to understand how the instruments transpose, which he did. So anyway, the second Alice was a violinist, and she was in his accompaniment class, and she decided that she was going to marry him, and so she figured out ways how she could help him with transcribing the works and everything, eventually he did marry her, and it was a difficult marriage, I think.
I hear she was very
Controlling.
yeah, she.
Well, it's funny. I met her just one time, and I was working on this piece called Symphonie Chorale. It's a very extended work by Tournemire, and Langlais had played many of the 7 Words of Christ, the beautiful works, shorter works by Tournemire, but he had never, did not know that work. He said, well, you know, he gave, quote, permission. He said, well, why don't you go and talk to Madame Tournemire? And I said, oh, okay. So I did, and well, she was, you know, she had sort of a British accent. I think that she had a governess who was British, and my memory of her was, she was, you know, very proper and polite, and I didn't pronounce, my French accent wasn't exactly right, and so of course she corrected me, and I said, well, I'm working on this piece by your husband, the Symphonie Chorale. So she had this journal, his diary, which had that at that time. Well, this is back in, when was this? In 1960, 63, I guess it was. So she had her husband's diary, but it had not been published, and people didn't know it. So, you know, she held on to this like it was a very special thing that she wasn't going to just share with anybody. So I said, well, I'm working on the Symphonie Chorale. I was wondering if you have any insights about that. And she said, oh, okay. So she opens the diary and she finds the part where he writes about that. And she said, oh, okay, well, see, it's based on Psalm 18. Okay, I didn't know that. You know, and here, you know, it's a paraphrase of that psalm. So she quotes from his diary, and I said, well, thank you very much. But that's how she was, very sort of cut and dried. You know, we didn't talk about the weather, and she didn't talk about Tournemire. I didn't get any inside information from her.
I hear she was very official.
She was, yeah.
And,